Well, welcome back to Elfster's Rifles and Reloading, and pretty much part 3 of the 7.62 by 39 reloading series.
All right, so starting out with these two, I believe this is Bellum, I believe, 1.212. I got two of each here, 1.212.
So that went from 212 clear up to 223. Wow. There's 212, went up to 224. An expensive Hornady 150 grain full metal jacket with a boat tail. Has a cantilever on it also, just for cheap plinking ammunition. And the reason why I'm going to do that is just have fun out in the range, have a good time. But my main goal is to get this Starline brass that's starting out at this measurement to fireform up to this, so I can knock it down 5,000 inch or bump it back 5,000 inch to my desired headspace, so I can tune this brass or ammunition for this particular PSA 10.5 inch 7.62 by 39 short. It won't be until I get through all 100 pieces of reloading this just for cheap plinking ammunition with cheap bullets to fireform this back up to this, to knock it down to where I precisely want it to be, where I can start reloading some of this ammunition for my SSTs and 150 grain for deer hunting, and also these 190 grain sub X for subsonic ammunition. What's special about these bullets, these sub X, is they only need to travel at 800 feet per second to peel open like a flower for maximum penetration. So to get up to this state, like I mentioned, I'm going to have to reload all this 100 pieces and then just have some fun at the range. I don't expect it to be ultimate performance. At least I can take you guys on this journey with me. And once I've fired that first round of reloads out of this brass, I should be able to, resize it to 218, fireform it back up to 223, resize it back to 218, and then fireform it back to 223, and create that process over and over and over until this brass is exhausted and needs to be thrown away. But at least for the 150 grain here, and this is the full metal jacket with a boat tail, you're going to hunt down that, which is a boat tail full metal jacket. Matter of fact, they even give you the model number here of 3037, which matches the box here. So this is definitely the list that I want to use. Matter of fact, you can see, and I've verified this even with the latest edition, they don't show CFP black. They do show Reloader 7, and I happen to have some of that in stock. So I'm going to use this powder up and these cheap bullets to expand this brass up from 212 all the way up to 223. And then once it's fireformed, we're all the way up to this point, and I can knock it down 5,000 inches down to 218. And then I'm going to start using my actual low development with these more expensive bullets and CFE black. With that being said, they do show Reloader 7 here, and I'm just going to take it clear up to max at 2100 here. I might go a smidgen bit less than this. Reloader 7, you know what, I'm actually going to play it safe. I'm going to drop that down to 23.4, being that this is just having fun at the range.
I'm not going to rehash over the first two parts, but just give you a quick lowdown. At least in part 1, we kind of went over fireforming that brass, seeing how much that brass actually grew from a SAMI spec of roughly 1.212 and expanding clear up to a 1.223. It's an enormous amount of brass expansion. And then we're going to knock that back down roughly 4 to 5 thousandths of an inch to a 1.218-ish, roughly, give or take. But in this part, we're actually shooting that Starline reloaded brass, and it starts at that SAMI spec of 1.212, and it's going to expand clear up to 1.223, and then I expect to resize it back down to 1.218, where I optimally want that brass to be. And then I'm going to reload the bullets that I actually want to reload. I got some 150 grain SSTs for hunting, and also some sub X 190 grain that I plan on reloading subsonically. But this brass here is just simply to get it fireform and have some fun at the range. I don't expect much out of these bullets, to be honest with you. And that's kind of why I reloaded some more inexpensive 150 grain boat tail full metal jackets. It's just to have fun. I don't expect it to be super accurate. It could be accurate. I don't know until I shoot it, but it is a boat tail. And I'm going to chronograph this to see where it comes in at least at the powder charge that I have it at right now, which is 23.4 grains of Reloader 7. And I got this set at a coal of 2.20 inches. And we'll just see how it goes. And like I said, this isn't the final reloads. It's just to get this brass fireform to where I really want it to be. I'm curious of how accurate I can get this PSA Gen 1. I believe they don't even sell these anymore. That has last round bolt hold and mounts up to a regular AR lower. This is a 10.5 inch shorty. Right now I have the Silencer Co. Omega 36M on here in its long configuration with a Coltac corset cover. I'm also using the Primary Arms GLX 2X Prism. Really nice prism optic. 2x, just a little bit of a magnification, especially for deer hunting. I think this is the perfect rig for that. With that being said, let's get this going. I'm going to start out with initially getting this fouled. I got this barrel scrubbed down to a mirror finish, so I'm sure I'm going to want to foul that out. So I'm going to start out with some really inexpensive full metal jacket, Wolf steel case ammunition. You know, nothing to write home about for sure, but I'm at least going to shoot 5 of these, get this filed out. Make sure my zero is good at 50 yards here. And we'll compare this chrono information with also the 125 grain, I believe that's 123 grams, sorry, a hollow point Wolf ammunition, and then we'll move on to our reload. So enough said, let's get this going. We're going to start out with the Wolf 123 grain full metal jackets. I'm just going to double check my zero here. And we're going to start out right in the middle there. And like I said, this needs to get fouled out, so I'm not expecting much from these groups. We'll see what happens. Let's just run down and see how we did, at least for those 5. All right, let's get this paused. You know, for really cheap Wolf ammunition, 123 grain, that's pretty darn impressive there. You know, at 50 yards, I'd say that's about a 5/8 group. I definitely need to get this adjusted up and to the right a little bit. But for really cheap ammunition, man, holy smokes, is that ever really, really impressive. All right, so I'm going to switch over to these Wolf hollow points.
All right, so we are starting a new session here with rifle and 1700 to 5000 feet per second. Yes, I want to enter the bullet weight, which this is 123 grain. We're going to try these hollow points again.
So we are good there. Let's load up another 5 of these hollow points. All right, so we got 2267, 2281, 2271, 2236, and 2230. All right, so just to kind of go over this Wolf here for 5 shots, extreme spread of 51 and a standard deviation of 20.1. And I'm gonna head down and make these circles a little bit bigger. I think right now I got them at 1-inch circles. They're just a little bit too small for me. And wow, that is super impressive. That's usually the results I see out of those hollow points. That's easily a 1/2-inch group at 50 yards all day long, maybe even a little under. So pretty impressive for some really cheap plinking with Wolf steel case ammunition. Not bad.
All right, so we're going to start a new session here. This is for rifle. It's between 1700 and 5000 feet per second. And yes, I want to enter my bullet weight. It's 100. We're switching over to my reloads here, which is 150 grain.
Should be good. All right, so I'm going to empty all this steel casings, and we're going to save brass for future reloading. And like I said, this brass is starting out at SAAMI spec of 1.212. It's going to span clear up to 1.223, and eventually I'm going to knock it back down 1.218, give or take. So I don't expect the most amazingness out of this reloads and ammunition. I won't know that until the next round, until I reload some decent bullets, but heck, who knows? You just never know until you try it. 1801, so I got these definitely underperforming here in regards to the amount of powder that I dropped. This is a 150 grain compared to 123. But hey, it's all about having fun. Like I said, this is more about fireforming. 1791, this is all about the fun, I guess. 1794, 1783, and the 5th shot of 1792. So yeah, definitely undercharged, no doubt about it. But we got a minimum of 1793, average of 1792, max of 1801. You could see the extreme spread and standard deviation massively dropped in comparison to that factory wolf ammunition. So take that for what it's worth. But like I said, this is more about fireforming, reloading, and learning the adventures of reloading 7.62 by 39. And like I said, I have this dropped to 23.4 grains of reloader 7, so I could definitely boost that up. Let's run down and see how we did. You know, it's not too bad. I mean, to be honest with you, it looks like the wolf's performing better than my reloads, believe it or not, which is interesting. I must have a bullet and a bullet hole on one of these, but I would say this is pushing about an inch group. But yeah, let's keep on going and see if we can tighten that up a little bit. So like I said, on these reloads with reloader 7, I load them at 23.4, which is 0.2 under max out of the Hornady book.
They do show reloader 7 here, and I'm just going to take it clear up to max at 2100 here. I might go a smidgen bit less than this. Reloader, you know what? I'm actually going to play it safe. I'm going to drop that down to 23.4, being that this is just having fun at the range.
You know, keep in mind that this is a 10.5-inch shorty. It's not like a 16-inch plus barrel. But regardless, you know, I just looked it up in the Hornady book, and for 7.62 by 39 bullet flavors between 150 and 155 using reloader 7, I have mine at 23.4. Like I said, the book maxes out at 23.6 at 2100 feet per second. Well, heck, we weren't even close to that. We were more like 1800, which is similar to dropping powder at 19.3 for 1800 if you go by the book. So it, you know, a lot, obviously this is a shorty, so it has something to do with it. But once again, the importance of having a chronograph to truly know how much you can keep on pushing that powder to boost this number up to the point of where you start seeing overpressure signs. Now, I'm going to grab this brass here. I'm going to check it out. Here's all 5 of them. And you can see how dirty it is. And the reason why is this has to massively expand. Remember, this is brand new Starline brass, and it's starting out at 1.212, and it's expanding clear up to 1.223, and then I'm going to knock it back down to roughly 4/1000ths of an inch, pass from 223 down to roughly 218, 219. So all this doesn't have to expand as much. What's happening as this is fired, that gases pushes the bullets down the bore, but some of those gases are escaping around this brass, and that's why this brass is so darn dirty. But I'm looking for pressure signs. I believe I got Velcro on the side of my deflector. I don't. I need to get some Velcro on the side of that deflector to eliminate some of these dents in the side, but it's actually not too bad. But I don't see any pressure signs. I don't see any massive cratering or ejector marks. I could definitely boost this 23.4 past what the book shows. Now, I'm not telling you to do that. This is just my reloading journey and my own reloading experience, so keep that in mind. But so far, this brass is looking pretty good. I'm kind of kicking myself for not getting that Velcro on my brass deflector. I always do that, but so far this brass looks pretty good. I don't see massive dents in it. Definitely brass that should be easy to reload. So let's keep on going. So I'm just going to continue on with this session, being that they're the same reloads. We're up to shot 5 here. 1777, 1794, 1802, 1804, 1807. All right, so with 10 total shots here, we're down to an average of 1795, an extreme spread of 30.4, standard deviation 9.2. And yeah, it's about the same group size, you know, just sometimes a particular barrel likes a particular bullet, and I think this is a classic example of that. You know, especially being that these showed a very extreme spreads, but the 123 grain absolutely favors with this barrel. I mean, look at some of these groups, especially for factory, but these are not that impressive, even though they got lower SDs and extreme spreads. but it is what it is. It's part of the reloading journey. But I don't think I'm going to bore you with any more of this. Some of this brass out of here. Yeah, like I said, it's very dirty because that brass has to expand so much. But, you know, just checking over some of this brass here. I don't see, obviously, any signs of pressure because I don't think there's enough powder in there to be overpressured. But definitely very reloadable brass, so that's awesome. See if you can make out that chronograph a little bit better. Might have pulled that last one. Got 15 shots now, and we're at an extreme spread of 31 and standard deviation of 8.9. Well, I got through 60 Fireforms. I'm going to keep the other 40 here for miscellaneous plinking in the future. So what did I learn on this? This particular 10.5 inch shorty in 7.62 by 39 doesn't like this bullet powder combination. You can see right out of the gate, we're not even remotely close to what the book said. Reloader 7 at 23.4, which is 0.2 under max of 2100 feet per second for this particular 150 grain bullet is not even close. Obviously, that's has a lot to do with the barrel length, but once again, you really don't know until you chrono it. I could go back in the future and retest this full metal jacket with a boat tail. To be honest with you, I don't think there's going to be much powder drop playing around with blah 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 node to get this even close to how my inexpensive Wolf full metal jacket hollow point was doing. So once again, like I started this video out saying, is this wasn't about seeing how accurate this was. It's about fireforming this brass up to where it needs to be so I can knock it back down. And that's just the short of it. Wish it was a little bit better, but once again, we're only getting roughly 1800 feet per second out of this regardless, so it doesn't really matter. But that's what reloading's all about. It's a journey. It's a learning process. Hopefully you learn something with me so you don't have to go down this road with me. And sometimes you get a little disappointed, and that's just the way it is. But I'm not totally disappointed. I learned something. I learned I'll never do this again, at least with this particular bullet and powder drop combination. And like I said, this is all about fireforming brass. So there's definitely going to be another part of this. It's going to get these now 60 pieces of Starline brass as fireform for this particular firearm, resized to its correct bumped headspace of roughly 4 to 5 thousandths of an inch back from fireformed. And then we're going to start playing around with those 150 SSTs for deer hunting, do some actual low development powder, different powder drops, and also those 190 sub X, and play around with feet per second, which in that situation, I'm probably only going to load up maybe 5 of them, quick run out here, shoot them, maybe do a series of different powder drops, see what's just under subsonic and see what is accurate and roll with that. So I might do 5 of this powder drop, 5 of this powder drop, 5 of this powder drop, and keep on whittling that feet per second down just under subsonic and whatever group's the best. So I'm playing around with some nodes, but once again, I won't know until I try that out. But that's all part of the reloading adventure. I've always said this when it comes to reloading, either you love it or you hate it. I've never met anyone in the middle. So, well, it is steamy hot out here. I'm sweating my rear end off here, and hopefully you guys got something out of this. If you did, scratch my back. I'll continue to scratch yours by not only subscribe, like, and share, and I'll see you guys in the next video.